Ready, give it to go. Terrence, you first. Accio. Good. Bailey.
Accio.
Very good. Luke.
Accio.
Wonderful. Now Gretchen.
Accio.
Excellent. Now all together on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
Accio Hogwarts Radio.
This is Hogwarts Radio, episode 240 for March 31st, 2019. Hogwarts Radio is the official podcast for wizarding news from HPA&A, discussing all things Harry Potter, Fantastic Beasts, and the rest of the wizarding world. For the quickest up-to-date news on the franchise, make sure you check out wizarding.news. Hello, everyone, and this is Hogwarts Radio, broadcasting to Harry Potter fans worldwide since 2008. I'm Terrence Pinkston.
I'm Bailey Riddle.
And I'm Alex Lohman.
Our show can be found virtually anywhere online, such as iTunes, the Google Podcast app, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Radio Public, and other places where podcasts are aggregated. It doesn't matter where or how you listen, just make sure to tap the subscribe button, and we guarantee you'll have a new episode each Sunday.
We also invite you to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram so you never miss an update from the show.
Don't forget, Hogwarts Radio is also on Patreon. By pledging, you'll have instant access to many benefits, including Into the Common Room, behind-the-scenes planning of the show, Hogshead Radio, and much more. Sign up today over at patreon.com/Hogwarts Radio. Welcome to episode 240. Wow, we finally made it, and I don't know where we're at right now, but that's great. I'm so stoked. We're here, guys.
Here's to another 240.
Here.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of crazy to think about, right? You start, I mean, we do this show each week, and then, before you know it, the episode numbers start racking up, and shoot, didn't we just do like episode 200 back, 6 months ago? It feels like, at least.
It feels like just yesterday.
Yeah, well, no joke. That's my point, is that, we just come back week after week and the episodes, well, the numbers just follow suit. But I thought it would be fun to kick off today's show with a kind of what-if moment. And this is more along the lines of like how we would like to see the series end. Do you guys feel like the epilogue was the perfect ending, or did you want to see something else?
So I'm probably going to have a widely unpopular opinion about this. I liked the epilogue. It was like satisfying on some superficial level of like what happens next. But I actually kind of would have loved Deathly Hallows to end without the epilogue and just end there, because the epilogue wasn't as in depth. It wasn't as like satisfying as I would have hoped it would have been. And so in that sense, I would rather leave it to the reader to kind of decipher what happens next. And so in that sense, in a perfect world, I probably just would have deleted the epilogue. And I know a lot of people are going to have some hot takes on that, but that is my 2 cents.
I completely agree with you, Alex. I feel like it's just enough of a tease. It only gives you such a small glimpse. And I feel this way about most epilogues. It's just, what's the point? Why can't it just be resolved within the main story? Why do I want to know where they're going to be in the future when I could just imagine it myself?
Well, yeah, I mean, but part of the fun is actually knowing, right? I mean, I'm going to have to agree with you guys. Yeah, I am, but I'm going to also talk about the other side of the spectrum here. It was nice to see 19 years later and the kids go off to college, yada yada, but I feel like that could have been something saved for Pottermore. I mean, really, the only new content that we learned out of that was Harry's kids' names and really how many kids he had and all that stuff. It just could have been saved for a couple of paragraphs on Pottermore later on. But, sure, the ending was perfect if they would have just cut it off right there, the final scene of Hogwarts, and then just let it be. But I would like to have known what each character went off and did. You know how, like, in movies, you'll see, like, I'm getting the How I Met Your Mother version right now in my head where, you just kind of go through, blah, blah, did this, and, oh, Carol, her name was Carol, and then, the next moment, it shows like Neville went on to teach herbology at Hogwarts and ended up marrying, so-and-so, and then, so on and so forth. I just feel like that's what I want, but it's not up to me to tell J.K. Rowling what I wanted. It's up to her to tell the story, and whether or not I agree with it, the story's already out there. So I just, we all have our individual quirks and our individual wishes that we would like to have, how we would like to have seen the series end. But yeah, wishful thinking at this point, right?
I do like the idea of it being, released on Pottermore versus actually doing like the truncated epilogue that she did write. Kind of goes back to our discussion last week of like what Joe gives us, what are we entitled to, all of that fun conversation we had. But I think I would have loved to see it on Pottermore. I think that's a really excellent point, Terrence, because then you could get into all these like nuances of what was Neville's future like, instead of like, we know Ron, Hermione, and Harry, and we know their kids, and we know platform 9 3/4 is still there. And that's essentially like the basics of what we learn in the epilogue. So yeah, I mean, if you're listening, Joe, really delve into it on Pottermore. We would love that.
It's funny that the rumors surrounding the very end of the series, before it came out, were surrounding the word scar. The series was supposed to end with the word scar instead of all was well or something like that, or however it ended. I don't have the copy with me, but it just goes to show you, maybe she had this moment in her head, like, oh, you know what? Instead of giving them just kind of like this comprehensive character wrap up, I could give them a little bit more of a potential story that I might have next in my head or something like that. Either way, I mean, it's just wishful thinking at this point, but still fun to think about. So before we get to today's news, we have a comment about last week's episode, and we really want you guys to go and listen to the discussion with Alex, myself, and Gretchen. It was a wonderful discussion that we had on the state of the fandom and things like that. So go listen to it. We still want to hear your comments. We'll still read them on a future episode of the show. But today's comment about last week's episode comes from Jordan. And Jordan says, I really enjoyed the discussion. It's a double-edged sword for sure, because this is such a powerfully passionate fandom that sometimes people forget that it was literally made out of nothing by the mind of an incredible writer. This world means so much to many people, so we want more and more answers because this world keeps growing and evolving, and we want to take the magic with us throughout every part of our lives. But this powerful passion can sometimes be the thing that takes the magic out by questioning everything. There's something to be said about enjoying what we have, because there are a lot of writers who stop giving new information. It would be heartbreaking if that happened to the wizarding world. Alex, did you have any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I just shout out to Jordan. I loved your response, and thank you for listening to our conversation. And I do think it's, Jordan said it best, that we're so passionate that we can really start dissecting everything, because it is an evolving world, and kind of the question of where do we stop? And I think, passion really is the double-edged sword. I think it's a great way to put it. But, like we talked about last week, we have such an incredible fan base to have the conversation with, that while it can get heated and it can get pointed sometimes, we are so committed and so passionate about the stories themselves that, how many years later we're still willing to have these conversations. So, but I just shout out to Jordan, and thank you for listening. I really appreciate it.
All right. Well, if you have comments, send them to us via, really anywhere you can find Hogwarts Radio online, Facebook, Twitter. We also have that thing called email. Old-fashioned, I know. staff@hogwartsradio.com. Go ahead and send your comments about anything we've discussed on our episode. We would love to share your email with other listeners of the podcast. Well, Gretchen has the week off again. She's using all of her HRTO, Hogwarts Radio time off. So we've kind of promoted Bailey to the interim news manager here. So Bailey, what's been happening in the news?
Well, besides fetching coffee for Gretchen as my intern position entails, Crimes of Grindelwald has topped DVD sales. It's conjured its way to the top of the official film chart and has ousted Bohemian Rhapsody's 4-week reign at number 1, as it apparated straight to the top of the official film chart this week. Universal Studios Hollywood has their Neighbor Pass back again. The California Neighbor Pass is an annual pass for Universal Studios that can be purchased by anyone for $149, not just California residents. The pass currently is the most cheap option for those looking to purchase an annual pass and features 175 days available to the park for the entire park, not just the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, during a 9-month period. Tom Felton has spoken out about Hagrid's magical motorbike adventure. He says, "It's a sight. It's a hell of a thing. I can't reveal any more than that, but I will say it's definitely something to look forward to. It's bizarre. It's the strangest creature I've ever seen in the world, ever. So yes, there's going to be no shortage of people going wow to that." How does that make you guys feel?
Tom, stop being vague. Just tell us. That comment from one of the actors in the series, I mean, puts a little weight behind it. For sure, but I'm still gonna wait. I'm still gonna wait and see. I'm not gonna get too excited about this thing just yet. I want to be able to experience it for myself and be like, "Hey, wow, that was awesome."
I'm kind of perplexed by his comment a little bit, because when he says, there's going to be no shortage of people saying wow to that, but then earlier he goes, "But I will say it's definitely something to look forward to. It's bizarre. It's the strangest creature I've ever seen in the world," and so, but the little fragment of "it's bizarre," it's one of those moments where you're trying to tell someone like, "Yeah, that was good." And in the back of mind, you're thinking, "I have this bizarre aftertaste. I don't know what I think of it, but I guess it was kind of good." Like, that's the tone I'm getting. And I'm like, oh, I've been waiting for this for so long. Like, I really hope it's not going to be the weird aftertaste of a ride. So I'm still like kind of skeptical. I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely agree. The fact that he calls it bizarre and the strangest creature I've ever seen in the world, it's almost like he's not describing a ride. That's not how I want a ride to be described.
Yeah, I wanted someone to say, like, "I screamed my head off," or like, "We went, 80 miles an hour." I don't know how fast roller coasters
It was
go,
the most
but
fun I ever had.
Yeah, right. Instead of "it's bizarre," I'm like, oh man.
He also went on to say that a lot of the team that did the films actually helped with the ride. Stuart Craig and Alan Gilmore and his team. The sets were actually nowhere near as immersive as the actual world. Every nook and cranny, there isn't an inch of that world that isn't completely part of the Wizarding World. You definitely feel like it's an immersive experience. I get the little tingles. I still get them when they play the theme tune. I get little tingles down the spine. It's great. It's very, for a lack of a better word, magical. So that at least made me feel a little bit better about his comments on this ride.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's, I don't know. I'm just going to have to wait and experience it for myself. I'm sure I won't be disappointed with this ride because I haven't ever been disappointed with a ride in the Wizarding World. But I don't know. I'm just going to, I'm going to play the waiting game.
Well, I think that's all you can do until you ride it yourself. You really can't make an informed decision on it.
Well, I mean, and has Tom even wrote it himself, or has he seen some sort of concept art? Or has he been like briefed on what people actually go through by people from Universal? Or did he talk to
he's part of the video?
Possibly so.
Oh, intelligent guess, my friend.
Oh my goodness.
Intelligent guess.
I don't know. I think he's kind of aged out of Draco.
He's visiting Hogwarts with his son. I don't know.
Okay. We'll go with that.
Anyway, we will have to wait to see and find out ourselves. And that is all for the news this week, my friends.
Wow. Okay. Very, very short news week. Very quiet. Unseasonably quiet with the news.
You know what that means?
That means next week is going to be, or next episode, I should say, is going to be heavy. This Potter news cycle, we've said it before, it's a roller coaster. So we might be at the very top right now, waiting to go down. Anyway, let's move on to a couple of announcements. Now, last week we informed you that because we reached 15 patrons, which was our goal on Patreon for one of the rewards. It's not our overall goal. Please keep donating on Patreon. Don't stop that. Your pledge goes to help sustain the show and cost to host the show. and other things like equipment and all that good stuff. But because we reached 15 patrons, we will be having longer episodes starting with episode 241. So instead of just an hour or less of Hogwarts Radio each week, you're going to be getting an hour and a half. So we can't thank our patrons enough for the support that they show week after week and month after month. So if you're listening to us record this episode live right now, thank you so much. Okay, so our discussion this week, there's two questions that I really wanted to talk about. First is the biggest kind of what the Fox moment, the biggest twist in the series for everybody was. So for me, it was finding out that Snape was good all along. Really, what were we thinking as we read the series and waited for the books to come out? Do you guys really remember talking about like the great Snape debate and was Snape good? Was Snape evil? What was the gleam of triumph in Dumbledore's eye and all that good stuff? So that was the biggest twist for me.
Personally, I was a young and easily duped child. So there were lots of things where I was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that happened. Or, oh my goodness, like so-and-so, Snape is good. But I think the thing that really hit me the most was that Harry was a Horcrux, because it was something that, looking back should have been so obvious with all of these similar characteristics that he shared with Voldemort.
It's funny because that, as I think it was by the time Half-Blood Prince came out or finished Half-Blood Prince, we were waiting for Deathly Hallows. That was starting to set in for me that Harry was a Horcrux, but that wasn't something that was immediately apparent. But you want to talk about either being gullible or just reading too fast and missing the details. I don't think this was intended to be a plot twist, but it was for me when I finally sat down and did the logic of it. And it was in the end when the Elder Wand Harry had won the Elder Wand. And when you did the math from the tower and Draco disarming Dumbledore and then going to Malfoy's Manor. And then at the end, and when they were talking about who the wand actually belonged to or who it called to at the end, I'm sitting there with the book and I remember vividly where I was. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. And then I'd have to go back. And then I kept reading the same 3 pages 4 times. And I was like, no. And then I had to go get the other books. And oh my God, it was a mess. But so kind of on that gullible or just, for me, it was probably just reading too fast because I was too excited to consume the entire series, was who the Elder Wand ultimately belonged to. That was the quote unquote plot twist for me.
So a lot of it.
Yeah, I think a lot of my disbelief in things that happened just was due to being so young, because I was 12 by the time the final book came out, and reading it fast because I whizzed through these books when they came out.
Every time you tell me how old you were when a book came out, I just feel so old. I'm at the point where my coworkers
are younger than me, and it makes me feel old, so I understand your pain.
Oh my goodness. You young whippersnappers and your damn books and here Elder Wands. Back in my day we were debating whether or not Snape was good or not. I don't know. A lot of different WTF moments in the series, right, for us. I mean, and I'm sure if we ask some of the other hosts on the program what their biggest twist was, it'll be different as well. I'm sure Gretchen has a much more different twist. But it goes to show you, like you said, Alex, you kind of had you did a double take. You were like, wait, what? No, that's not right. And you had to go back in and check J.K. Rowling's work. And the fact that J.K. Rowling was right just goes to show you how wonderful and how precise of an author she is, how attentive to detail she is with everything.
Or just my total arrogance and thinking that I could go fact check J.K. Rowling. I think it's more the latter.
I mean, J.K. Rowling is so good at dropping these little hints that you'll never realize are important until you get 1 or 2 books down the series and you're like, this sounds familiar. Why do I know about this?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I think Horcruxes in general was a pretty big twist. We didn't learn about these little ways that Voldemort could come back really until the 6th book. That there were several ways that Voldemort could return, and that they were all hidden in these objects and stuff like that. So that was a standout moment for me as well. But again, it goes to show you that, one, don't ever fact check J.K. Rowling, because she will check you. She will make you check yourself before you wreck yourself. I don't know. But she knows what she's doing as a storyteller. And this is why I have confidence in her as a screenwriter. For this Fantastic Beasts series, and I trust her with what she's doing with the movies, and I guarantee you movie 3 will not be like movie 2. So there's going to be a big change, and she's doubling down, and she is checking her work many times, I'm sure. The second question, or the second topic, really, I wanted to talk about is Dumbledore, and he is going to be big. Busy. Well, Dumbledore's going to be busy, okay?
He's got a lot on his plate, that Dumbledore.
Oh, he sure does. Let me tell you about Dumbledore here. Dumbledore... So what I have here in my notes is, does Dumbledore try to recruit Tom Riddle in an attempt to defeat Grindelwald? Because he couldn't bring himself to do it. We all know that Dumbledore likes to work through people, right? So Dumbledore's an awesome manager, right? So he brings people to do his own dirty work. And the reason why I'm asking that is because we first see Dumbledore recruiting Tom Riddle for Hogwarts in about 1936, 1937, when we visit the scene in the Pensive. When Grindelwald was defeated in 1945, Tom Riddle graduated from Hogwarts that same exact year. By then, Dumbledore has already realized that Riddle has already opened the Chamber of Secrets. So while Dumbledore is hunting down Grindelwald, he's a full-time teacher, is keeping an eye on Tom Riddle, and he's dealing with the Chamber of Secrets saga. Like, Dumbledore has a lot to deal with. In addition to, like, can you imagine the emotional distress he's going through, because in the end, he knows he's going to have to face Grindelwald.
I mean, clearly, if he has to go try to recruit Tom Riddle, he's hoping that he's not going to have to face Grindelwald in the end. This is sort of his last-ditch attempt, if you will, to find someone who's powerful enough to help him take him down.
At this point, do you think Dumbledore has destroyed the Blood Pact, or do you think he still has it?
By the time he goes to recruit Riddle?
Right.
I think he's probably still got it. I don't think that he can actually 100% defeat him until he's destroyed it. So I think he's still trying to find a workaround at this point.
Just as a question for everyone, do we think that this might be fleshed out a little bit as the Crimes of Grindelwald series will go on? Like, if this is in fact part of the motivation for Dumbledore in reaching out, obviously it's not the sole reason why he reached out to Tom Riddle, but if that was a motivating factor, do we think we're going to see that in the screenplays?
See, it's $1 million question, isn't it? Is this series, this Fantastic Beasts franchise, going to tie directly into the Harry Potter series? And a lot of people will be upset if that's the case. I mean, eventually these worlds and these storylines are going to intersect just because of how complex they are, and how vast this world is and how intertwined this world is. I mean, we've already started to see, a little bit of that at Hogwarts. I don't know. I think if they do bring in Riddle, we already know how much of a presence Tom Riddle is, and it's just going to be overpowering the Grindelwald story. Just in my head, just really kind of thinking about it on a surface level.
I feel like it's weird because we've already seen interactions with Dumbledore and a young Tom Riddle, to then all of a sudden now we've got Jude Law and a new young Tom Riddle. I feel like it just leads to confusion in the overall scheme of all of the films together.
Yeah, no, I can really see where it'd be confusing in film format. Now in a book adaptation, because we always get the screenplay. I can see where it makes sense in the screenplay, but like seeing it play out on screen, no. I don't know if Dumbledore is going to reach out to Riddle See, it's hard to think about because, you know what, Tom Riddle has such a presence in the Harry Potter films. And while it'd be great to kind of get that little backstory and reason, like true reason why Dumbledore recruited him to go to Hogwarts, I just feel like if we do that, it's going to take away from the Grindelwald and Fantastic Beasts and just, I mean, everything in general, just because of how much of a presence Tom Riddle is.
So, Terrence, when you say that a lot of people would be upset with kind of the intersection of Fantastic Beasts and Harry Potter in this context, is that coming from a place of kind of what you're saying, that Tom Riddle is such a big character in and of himself that it would overshadow what we have going on in Crimes of Grindelwald? Or is there like a canon camp where it's not established in canon, so what are we doing? Like, I just kind of wanted you to flesh that out a little bit, because I actually haven't quite delved that deep into people's opinions on that, and admittedly Reddit scares me sometimes, so I don't go too far deep into Reddit. But I'm interested to hear what you're seeing, just on people's perspectives on that.
Yeah, people want a separate story. That's what they want. They don't want this to intersect with Harry's story. And quite frankly, if you do bring in Tom Riddle, that's a direct connection to Harry's story right there, because it's something we've already seen in Harry's story. People don't want that. People want this series to remain its own. They want it to remain separate. And while, you know, you have characters in here that are around in the Harry Potter series, it's bound to intersect. I don't think people are going to be all too happy about that, because they're going to be like, well, no, because Tom Riddle is going to overshadow everything else. Everything that we know about Tom overshadows Grindelwald anyway, because Tom Riddle is the true threat. And people want Grindelwald in this series. They want his story flushed out, because in this series, he's the true threat.
Do you both share that opinion, that this should be a standalone series that really should not touch the four corners of the original Harry Potter series?
I don't think so. I think even just the fact that we have Dumbledore already kind of has made it crossover, whether we want it to or not. And I personally would be perfectly okay with seeing the end of, you know, the fourth or fifth movie of Fantastic Beasts starting to lead into the events of what leads up to Voldemort's rise to power.
I think I would be fine with that as well, just as long as we don't have a movie that directly involves Tom Riddle. Think about...
Yeah, just like hints and little teasers here and there.
Think about... in Batman Begins, right? How at the very, very end, Commissioner Gordon presents Batman with a Joker card and says, this guy has been causing trouble, and he goes, I'll look into it. And I think that would be a perfect way for the Fantastic Beasts series to end, is, well, this, Tom Riddle has disappeared. And, that could be the point in Riddle's life where he goes to Albania and becomes Voldemort in Albania. And then whenever he returns, of course, he returns as Lord Voldemort. I think that would be a great way to kind of lead into the Harry Potter series. Kind of like that decline off of the climax, because we already know the climax of the fifth movie is going to be Grindelwald and Dumbledore's legendary duel.
Yeah, I do. I like that. And I also like, Bailey, your point that, we don't have to see Riddle as a character cast on the screen for Riddle to actually play a significant part. Riddle could be alluded to. And I also think it kind of averts the problem that you raised. I've been sitting here thinking about how you get around, which is we have seen young Riddle and Dumbledore. And that Dumbledore obviously does not look like Jude Law now. So I do think you have some image problems there. But I do like kind of the allusions to it. I like it built into the narrative. And then I do like, Terrence, what you're saying, where we end off with Riddle and how we then can read into it. Here's the rise. And it's funny that you bring up Batman Begins, because I was sitting here and all of a sudden Star Wars episodes 1, 2, and 3 popped into my head of like the prologue problem and trying to make certain characters fit in like their wonderful attempts at CGI, which I think Gretcher's talked about last week. And so I was like, well, could we have that here? And I was like, no, we're not doing that. We are not making the Lucas mistake. Yeah, I do really like that solution. I would like the two series to kind of intersect, not substantially, because I would like to see Crimes of Grindelwald as its own story, obviously, or Fantastic Beasts, excuse me. But I do think we would be remiss to not at least touch on the kind of the ending bits that would lead into Harry Potter, because you can't really have two standalone series when, like you both said, your key character is Dumbledore. I mean, it doesn't make sense. It would feel unfinished to me.
The only thing that would bother me about the two stories intersecting is if Tom Riddle became a direct part of this narrative. That would just bother the hell out of me. But if he was alluded to in the final film, that would be fantastic. A fantastic way to end a fantastic series. Any final thoughts about Dumbledore and how busy he's gonna be? We didn't even touch on the Chamber of Secrets. Let's talk about that for a moment. So the Chamber of Secrets was open before he had to, kind of jump into the whole legendary duel with Grindelwald. So he's dealing with all that. He's dealing with this mythical beast. Ooh, and I wonder if Newt is going to have a part in this, in like putting him back into this mouth thing that the beast comes out of. I'm so excited right now because I figured this out. Oh my God.
Okay, so I just had the best like freak out. I wish people could have seen as Terrence was explaining this. I was like wigging out on my couch, like, yes. But I think the best part of that, Terrence, was, so I think as people may know, I live in Florida. My husband went to UF, and the gesture that you just made is what Gator fans make at Gator games. It's the chomp noise. And so you were like into the mouth, and all I saw was like Gator fans at football games. But I digress. Anyway, no. Oh my God, I'd be so excited for that. I think that would be amazing. Yet another argument pro for us touching on two universes, maybe intersecting at times when they're relevant. I had never really, until I read that note about Dumbledore dealing with the Chamber of Secrets, that never really popped into my head until just now. But that has to be insane to be dealing with that for the first time. Also dealing with a student, Hagrid, that, they have a good relationship. And we kind of know it stems from opening the Chamber of Secrets, but we don't know kind of what it was before. I assume that they had a pretty good relationship before. But dealing with that, also having your suspicions about Riddle, as we see in some of the flashbacks in Chamber of Secrets coming through there. And if we're thinking that Riddle was kind of cultivated to maybe bring down Grindelwald, it's kind of like, okay, I've got this student, this tool that I could use, but I'm also skeptical of his own motivations on top of my own beef that I've got with Grindelwald. Like, man, I'm getting like stressed out just thinking about all the stuff that a fictional character has to deal with.
That is crazy.
I just imagined a young Hagrid before he gets expelled being introduced to Newt Scamander and kind of like idolizing him and fully wanting to take up Newt's mission, but in the wrong way. Like, Hagrid just wants to collect these beasts as his pets, kind of, and Newt wants to study them to help other people know more about them. And I think that would be a really cute part to the movies if we got to see that.
That would be really cool to see kind of Hagrid fanboy out with Newt. Maybe Newt is the person that kind of calms Hagrid down after Hagrid gets expelled for the Chamber of Secrets debacle. And let's not forget that Dumbledore is dealing with the death of a student at Hogwarts as well. I mean, granted, he's not headmaster. He's the transfiguration professor at that particular time, but it still has to weigh on his mind quite a bit. I mean, as smart as Dumbledore is, I think we just blew the Chamber of Secrets wide open with this episode. That was fun to think about.
It's a lot of food for thought.
Yeah, yep. Newt Scamander closes the Chamber of Secrets. Wow.
Oh,
And
I'm gonna have some trippy dreams tonight. I'm
Oh
just
my
gonna
God.
put that out there. My mind is blown right now.
Are you gonna imagine like Eddie Redmayne in the Chamber of Secrets and like kind of try to tame this beast? And he's got for those of you who are viewing our video, he's got his head down and he's going like this with his wand and kind of beating the beast back.
That's a great Newt impression.
Sorry.
Your physicality
Don't quite
is
know that's
great.
how he works.
No, I am thinking about that. But then I just have this great image as well of Bailey's kind of description of Hagrid in the background, like, no, you don't have to like punish him. Like, we can keep him. He could be our pet. And that's a very oversimplification of what Hagrid's response would be, I know. But man, I don't think I was so prepared to have my mind blown in the last like minute and a half, like we just did. Like, piecing this all together, and Terrence with your Gator Chomp on the Chamber of Secrets. I'm just, oh man, at 11 o'clock at night, I was just not prepared for this, but I'm so bloody excited. So excited.
Well, that's what we do here over at Hogwarts Radio is we theorize, we bring it all home to Hogwarts because it's always there. Never mind. It's fun to think about. We want to hear some of your theories as well out there, those of you that are listening right now. Send us an email to staff@hogwartsradio.com. We'll be happy to read your email on the episode. And gosh, we would really love to hear your thoughts about this. And hey, share the theory with your friends. I mean, at least credit the Hogwarts Radio, but still, this is a wonderful theory and a wonderful thing to kind of blow open. I don't think anybody's really gone that deep into the Chamber of Secrets saga in that particular way before. So we would appreciate any feedback that you guys can provide to us. Well, I think that's it. We're done. We are through for this evening's episode, or this week's episode of a shorter than usual show. Yes, I know. But with episode 241, we're going to start with hour and a half discussion so we can dive deep into the subject matter and really get to the crux of the issues that we talk about.
Hopefully not the horcrux of the issues.
No, not at all.
Doo-doo-ch. Good job.
We are going to be taking next week off for our spring break. Whoop, whoop, spring break.
Yay, adults get spring break.
We do, kind of, sort of. But the week after next is whenever we'll come back with episode 241, and we should have a lot to talk about on that week's episode. Remember, you can always sign up over on Patreon, become a patron of the show, and get all kinds of bonus goodies and stuff like that. It is well worth it. I promise you won't be disappointed. Check out our Time Turner Thursdays if you're subscribed to the podcast. Anywhere you get your podcast, you're automatically getting those Time Turner Thursdays into your feed. We released one this past week. Go check that out as we discuss whether or not John Stamos is a Ripper or Ravenclaw. It's so much fun. Yeah, we have a lot of fun on those older episodes, and we hope you have as much fun revisiting and re-listening as we did actually recording them. Well, for now, I think that's it. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. Once again, I am Terrence Pinkston.
I'm Bailey Riddle.
And I'm Alex Lohman.
And we'll be back in 2 weeks.
That was bloody brilliant.
Codswallop.